We thank you so much for staying on this channel. This is Law School Made Easy at Law School Made Easy 256. My name is Walter, and today we want to embark on constitutional history, and in particular they want to look at what we call the Asian question. That what do we mean by the term Asian question? It is very important. This Asian question or crisis started in 1920 and it culminated into what we call the economic war in 1972. So many things had been piling until when President Idi Amin Dada expelled the Asian out of the country. However, it created many effects that we still face even up to today. But the essence, the purpose of this video today is to discuss what we mean by the term Asian question. But before we go into that, we want to ask you to subscribe, share, and like our videos. Keep sharing these videos, keep liking, keep the comments coming. Let's have a very fruitful interaction in the commentary. But let us enter into Asian question 1920. Now, the British, after signing the 1900 Buganda Agreement, remember we agreed the 1900 Buganda Agreement was an establishment of the British rule. That they found ways of establishing their rule, and the only way was to get Buganda on their side. Remember, at the time, Buganda was very strategic. Buganda was the strongest, and Buganda, every other region or province feared the area Buganda. So the British, to establish, not to get challenges with Buganda, they brought the Buganda on their side by signing 1900 Buganda Agreement. After signing that, in 1902, they signed what we call the Order in Council. And the Order in Council was now to formalize their rule. They formalized their rule, created took over land, brought a commissioner, many things, introduced their laws, a reception clause, 11th August 1902. All those things occurred in 1902. Now, when they introduced their laws, they also introduced the Asians. Now, the Asians came to work on behalf of the British. In simple terms, some of you who drive cars, the Asians were shock absorbers. That the British, in some instances, they feared to come out full range to effect their rule. But they worked through the Asians. And this could explain why we got the Evidence Act came from India, the Contract Act came from India. It was a bit of introduction, and they introduced the Indians to work on their behalf. And the Indians now would report back to the British. Now, in that operation, the Africans, the Ugandans, were segregated. They were subjected to inhuman rule in favor of the Indian. Now, this can be seen, for example, at the formation of the LegCo, the Legislative Assembly. For the first time when we got the LegCo in 1920, in the Order in Council, there was an introduction of the Legislative Assembly. And the first person to sit on it was not an African, but they appointed Amin Shalabam. That name is a bit hard, you also look it out. Now, Amin was appointed as the first person to sit on it with the governor who was on that Legislative Assembly. Now, what does this mean? This is some bit of segregation. This is discrimination. And you know that Article 21 of our Constitution talks about discrimination, that all men are free from any form of discrimination, whether political, whether economic, whether social or race, color, age. You are not supposed to be discriminated. But you imagine a scenario. You are in your own country and then a parliament is made, and none of the natives is a member in that parliament. So that is the situation that the Ugandans at the time were subjected to, by appointing Amin as a member of parliament, leaving out all that. There were very many forms of discrimination. Let's talk about the trade ordinances, which were created in favor of the British and the Asian, segregating the natives, the Ugandans. For example, an African was not supposed to trade in a radius of 10 miles, 10 kilometers. Let's assume those of you who know Kampala. If you are here let's say in Kampala, Africans were not supposed to trade from Kampala up to Batuga, Chugogwa. That's why you have 10 kilometers. You were not supposed to trade up to Batuga. You pass Kawempe, you pass Bwaise, you pass Kagoma, you pass Maganjo, Kawanda, and you are in Matuga. You don't make business in that area. That is a form of segregation, which was engineered by the Asians. So the Africans, when we say the Asian question, the Africans, Ugandans, were not happy with these forms of injustices which had been subjected to them. Let's look at the steel trade ordinances, that they even singled out a few of the crops that if you were Ugandan, you are not supposed to grow or to participate in the growing of those crops. Cotton, coffee making, all those areas were now taken by the whites. Including, let's talk about infrastructures. All the good housing in towns were meant to be for the Indians and the British. I was shocked the other day. I went to some place called Aduku in a park. I found there all buildings in town are for Indians. They were for Indians. So, the possession of the infrastructures by the Asians, the occupying of the agricultural sector, the trading ordinances of 1938, which never allowed Africans to participate in trade freely. Africans were annoyed, and this pressure kept on growing, increasing. The question is, does the pressure increase or decrease? In this case, it kept on increasing until 1972, when General Idi Amin decided to expel all the Asians. But the origin started way back from 1920, when we had the Asians occupying almost all the areas, occupying the trade, the agriculture, the leadership positions. All those areas were occupied by the Indians, and the Africans were left with nothing. Now, there were some bit of effects that came out of the Asian question. The Asian involvement not giving space to Ugandans in everything in the 1920s to the 1960s. Some of the effects were Africans now got annoyed, and eventually in 1972 we had economic war, the expulsion of Indians in this country. I want to tell you it caused a lot of effect, because the Indians had occupied these industries, and it was them who had known how to operate them. On leaving them to Africans who were less educated, who were less informed or skilled about running the industries, almost everything collapsed. To date, there are effects which are originating from there. There are also constitutional reforms or effects which came out of the Asian question. For example, Article 79 of our Constitution that talks about Parliament, that after refusing Africans to participate in the Legicor, later the Africans were allowed in 1952 when Sir Andrew Cohen came to now participate fully in the issues of parliament, legislation of the laws. And up to date, we have gotten that clause and we have put in our constitution, Article 79, there shall be a parliament, and its mandate in 79.1 is to make laws. Where it cannot make laws in 79.2, they have given powers to other entities to make laws. But we believe this must have come from that bit when Amin, an Indian, was introduced in that parliament. Let's look at another effect, is the economic effect. The refusal of Africans to participate in trade. Anyway, the trade was there. Could it explain the introduction of Article 152? Because these Asians were collecting money, were making money, and the surplus money, they were repatriating it to their country, developing their country, leaving our country. Could this explain Article 153 that talks about consolidated fund, that now all the money is collected in this country are put together in one pool? So we are saying, from the bad behavior of the Indian, we must have gotten Article 153 that says all our money will be kept in as consolidated fund. Let's look at the element of saying Africans shall not make business in this range. That you are not allowed to make business in this range, in this radius. That is one form of discrimination. Segregation. Can it explain Article 21 of the Constitution, which says everybody is free from discrimination, whether political, social, or economic? So we are saying it is possible, after the Asians segregating us to that capacity, to that level, we picked our lessons, and the effects are we have now controlled the element of discrimination in our constitution. Everybody is free to enjoy their right. We're even saying that human rights are inherent. Nobody should violate them, not the state. So that is the area that we call the Asian question. That is how it impacted on our constitution. That is how it impacted on our day-to-day life today. We thank you so much for watching Law School Made Easy. At Law School Made Easy 256, we ask you to subscribe, share, and like our videos. Thank you so much. Until next time.